Welcome to another Cardinals Nest here on HBC TV 25. This is where we talk about St. Mary's University and our athletic programs. I'm Dean Beckman, joined once again by our Sports Information Director, Donnie Netto. And today, Jen Miller, head softball coach, is our guest as we focus this episode on the softball team at St. Mary's. And Jen, Donnie, and I just drove past the softball field. And first of all, you can't see the field because of the snowbanks. And then when I actually did kind of get my head up just high enough, the snow is literally halfway up the outfield fence,
yes,
right? So
correct.
As a softball coach, it seems like we talk weather every single year, but this year, again, is particularly challenging just from the amount of snowfall that we've already got, plus the more that's being forecasted right now.
Yes. Yep, as a softball coach, you talk about weather almost every day. So this is a little bit more snow than we're used to. So we'll see what we can do. We are able to play in domes, unlike baseball. So we'll get some, but it's still a different game when you play in the dome. So hopefully, maybe after this weekend and the projected snowfall, we'll be able to get some sun and get some melting going.
You know, when you guys left for Claremont 10 days ago, we had snow, but not anything like we had now. Were you surprised when you guys landed again and came back at how much snow we had? And really, tell me what you were thinking in terms of this season when you saw what kind of snow we had when you guys got back.
Sure. Well, when we were down in Florida, we were living a life, living in shorts and T-shirts, and we had heard that it was getting kind of bad up in Minnesota, but nowhere near when we came back we think it was going to be that amount of snow. We normally get some snowfall about this time, and then it starts to melt, but this is a greater amount than we're used to, so we'll see what we can do, and we always make the best of it, and hopefully get some games in, maybe in April.
Well, you know, you talked about the dome earlier. Of course, there's a dome in Rochester that you're able to play in. How often have you gotten in there already this spring, and what's the anticipation for how much more you can do? Obviously, sure. Budget plays a factor because you do have to pay some fees to play there.
Yep. We'll play there on March 15th against Luther in a doubleheader. I do have some space for our first two doubleheaders after Luther, the 27th, I believe the 30th. So I have those spaces reserved already, and then after that we'll just have to see, hope for some good weather. But as you said, budget plays a part in it because when you play against other teams, they split the cost with you. So it depends on two budgets, not just one. So we'll see what we can do and hopefully get some games in.
I have to imagine as you create your schedule. And you look at this year's schedule, you actually had 3 doubleheaders scheduled in March. Mm-hmm. Was that a little bit of wishful thinking and hoping that maybe we'd have a normal winter? You know, what's the thought process that you go through as you try to put together a schedule, knowing that, okay, I'm going to schedule some games in March, but we're probably not going to get them in outside? Sure.
The first game, the Luther game, was supposed to be on March 18th, and that was wishful thinking, which Renee and I said that. We're like, we'll hope for it, because we couldn't find a date that worked in April. So we tried to find one in March. The 27th, some years we are outside by March 27th, so the last 2 years, maybe this year, you never know, but this last year and this year have been kind of anomalies. So some years we're out in the middle of March 14th, practicing outside. So it kind of depends on the year and Mother Nature, and you can't do anything about it. So I think as baseball, softball coaches, we're pretty flexible. We try to move games where we need to and play when we can. So.
I know that talking to you last year, you're like, I hope this never happens again, because you played
yep.
probably, aside from your spring trip, probably half of your games were played in domes,
yep.
and it's kind of looking like that may happen again. Sure. Does that affect how you prepare for the season? Because, like you had mentioned, it's a completely different game. Mm-hmm. Bases are still the same amount of distance apart, but it's a different game when you play in a dome compared to playing outside.
Yeah, so it's last year we played about half of our games probably in domes. It's a different game, being that inside off the turf it comes a little faster. If you play on dirt, the game can slow down a little bit. So the game's a little bit faster indoors. Also having to play the balls off the roof of the dome. So whether it's an out, whether it's not an out, depends on what dome you're in, who you're playing, where it's a home team's decision, what the rules want to be. So we've tried to, as a league, we try to narrow down those rules a little bit last year. hoping that it would never come into play, but obviously it will this year. And then the stats are kind of, if you look at stats for hits and home runs and stuff, that can be affected by the height of the dome. And if you hit the dome, it's automatic out or it's not an out. So that kind of screws up the stats a little bit.
You know, Donnie, for my slow pitch softball team, I think I ought to play in a dome. I think I could get a few more hits if it's a faster.
You might be able to. Well, let's not talk domes. Let's talk about the 10 games that you've played.
Sure.
You got to get outside in Claremont, Florida. As you mentioned, it was beautiful and sunny. And, we were sitting here shoveling. But talk a little bit about the trip and what you got out of those 10 games in Florida.
Yeah, we were relatively, which I've told my team this too, a relatively young team. At our positions, we have probably, most games were probably at least 5. We had 5 people in different positions than we had last year. So 5 new people in positions. So that kind of played a little bit of factor, a little bit of a learning curve. Other things probably from the trip that we learned, we need to work on our small ball game, bunting, and then base running, which base running, learning to read balls off the bat is a little bit tougher when you're practicing inside in our Gostomski Fieldhouse every day compared to out on the actual size field, and the length between the infielders and outfielders, knowing, being able to judge when the ball's down and when it's going to be caught. So some things to learn about there, but we saw a lot of good things. We saw some good pitching, so we have some good at-bats under our belts, and I think our players have learned to adjust to different pitchers and what needs to happen between at-bats. So I think that we'll be sitting pretty good as we continue. You know,
how you're in your 13th year now as head coach, so I think you've got a really good feel for this spring trip that you take. Most years it's in Florida. Once in a while you've gone to Arizona, but how do you approach those games? They're not preseason games. They count, right? But as you just pointed out, you also need to use them as kind of a learning tool, not only for you, but for the players as well, and where the players might fit best and everything. So how do you approach those games when you go?
Sure. So obviously going into any game, these do count on our record. So as a coaching staff, we're looking to put out a lineup that obviously, hopefully, we can win. But also we can do some pinch hits, pinch runners, seeing what we got. Knowing that if you put a pinch runner in, are they going to be able to read? Giving them some opportunities there. Having some different, couple of different people get some at bats as well to see some live pitching more than just our pitchers in practice. So we kind of take advantage of that. For defense, most of the time you're putting about the same lineup out so that they get used to playing with each other, knowing that when you get into conference season, you'll put some other people at different positions, but most of the time it's probably about the same defense. We're putting in some different pinch hitters and pinch runners, but just so the infielders, outfielders get used to playing again with those people. But in practice, everyone gets an opportunity to perform. Everyone gets the opportunity to show us what you got, so that's a way to get in the lineup as well. So every lineup's not set in stone. We talk about the lineup before every single game. So so knowing that we're coming back, now we got a couple weeks of practice. So some of those student athletes that didn't get in the games, we still got 15 practices before we get back out there. So so showing us what you got in that and getting in the lineup that way.
Is it hard for you, having spent some time in Florida, to come back and then have to be back inside for, as you said, even if you play next week against Luther, you're still going to be inside. Is it really tough mentally for the players to be able to kind of flip that switch again and say, okay, we're back in practice mode, inside, doing everything that we'd rather be doing outside?
Yep, so I would say back in the rack. So so we're back in the rack again. It's a little bit tougher. Ground balls, they come a little bit faster off the rack floor. So a little bit different than the dirt. Outfielders, it's hard to hit fly balls in the field house. So so that'll be a little bit different for them. So getting back into that will be a little bit of a mental challenge. But we've done it before, so hopefully we can flip the switch again. But it's always a challenge every single year. So you
mentioned the young roster that you have. What do you see as kind of the strengths of this roster, and where are some areas you need to improve, maybe outside of what you saw in Florida?
Yep. Strengths are we're faster this year. We got faster base runners. So that's a strength. We got good fielders, so just making sure we're consistent. So strength is, I think we can be a little bit more, or challenge right now, we just need to be a little bit more consistent. So an opportunity there. And I think our hitters, just seeing more pitches, more at bats, getting some more under their belts, and I think we'll be pretty successful.
You know, you've mentioned several times the youth of this team, but talk a little bit about the importance of your upperclassmen then as you start to prepare for this season and their role in making sure that one, the team is at one unit, and two, and just kind of giving experience for those younger people.
So our upperclassmen right now, we have a couple of them. They're doing a good job being leaders, showing them what Cardinal Fast Pitch is about, and making sure that once they leave the program, they've left something behind. So leave the program better than it was when you came in. So hopefully they're doing that, but they have good leadership. They work hard. They're showing them how to play ball. So that's good, and we got a bunch of those upperclassmen that are doing that for us.
Jen, a couple more questions. We've got Hallie Schmeling, your shortstop, sophomore shortstop, coming on the program next. Tell us a little bit about Hallie. She's off to a terrific start, obviously, in Florida, batting over 400 down there, and she has big cleats to replace with Brittany Burkhauser graduating last year, so she's taking over that spot.
So Hallie plays both basketball and softball, so we're lucky that she's chosen to play both and not just basketball. But she came in, her bat was hot in Florida, hopefully that continues, but she's showing that leadership position at shortstop. She came in for a couple days of practice before we went on the spring trip, and came in cleats running on the spring trip, so she played well at short. She learned a lot from Britt last year. She played a little bit with Britt last year, second base shortstop, so she had good leadership there. And I think that she's just going to continue doing what she's doing.
Yeah, all right. And then last question, Jen. One of the things we like to educate our viewers on the many roles that our coaches play. And what most people probably don't know about you is you are also St. Mary's compliance coordinator. So maybe educate us on what that means. What do you do in that role?
So compliance, I make sure that all our coaches are hopefully following all the NCAA rules. Make sure that all of our student athletes are eligible to compete, so grade-wise, GPA-wise, credits-wise. So I make sure I do all those eligibility checks. I try to make sure all of our student athletes know the NCAA rules. So we're following all those from the recruiting standpoint to the student athlete standpoint. So making sure that all happens. So yeah, many hats.
Donnie, has Jen always...
You've seen that manual. It's like this thick, so she's got a lot to remember.
I was going to ask you if she's always been a rules follower.
Yes, she has.
Okay,
yes,
so they got the right person doing it.
Yes, she has.
Well, Jen Miller, head softball coach, thanks for joining us today, and good luck the rest of the year here.
Thank you.
All right, Hallie Schmeling, the starting sophomore shortstop, will be on the program next here on HBC.
Be sure to check out US Golf TV, where you are going to see golf products that you have never seen before. You're also going to see golf tips from some of the leading instructors around the country that are truly changing the way people are teaching the game and challenging the status quo. Also, you're going to see fitness tips that are revolutionizing the way PGA Tour pros are training their body and swinging the golf club. If you want something different, if you're looking for some new information, US Golf TV has it. Be sure to check your local listings. US Golf TV, we've got you covered.
HBC Community Wi-Fi is a system of wireless access points installed in public and private locations. Delivering community Wi-Fi to a remote campground or marina is an engineering challenge that can involve a lot of different technologies and require some creative thinking. HBC leadership is committed to delivering cutting-edge services to our customers and in the communities we serve.
Providing opportunities for residential and business customers. HBC is innovation and creativity.
Follow the national circuit of the Pro Watercross Tour each week on Pro Watercross. It's not your average day at the beach. Featuring the best professional and amateur power sport athletes from around the world competing on the most beautiful beaches and venues in the USA, on some of the most challenging and technical race courses in the world. Check out the high-speed thrills of Pro Watercross on HBC TV 25.
Cardinal Implement Company is an agricultural equipment dealership. Back in 2016, when HBC brought fiber optics to Altura, we saw a huge benefit in internet speeds over previous providers. With our vendors requiring real-time communications with our inventory and parts books, the internet speed has given us an advantage over our competition. I would recommend HBC's products because HBC has helped Cardinal Implement grow.
Contact HBC about our lightning-fast home and business internet connections today.
Businesses of all sizes demand results. That's why HBC provides digital solutions for every business, from startups and entrepreneurs to large corporations. HBC is local. Our team of customer service reps and business specialists are your friends and neighbors. HBC will take the time to understand your business and recommend a tailor-made solution. HBC delivers a competitive edge for a competitive price. Let HBC Business Solutions take your business to the next level. Call 888-474-9995 today.
Don't miss out on highlights and score updates from your favorite local college and high school athletics by following HBC TV 25 Sports. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get up-to-date information on all the games covered by the HBC sports team. Grab your smartphone and add us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at HBC TV 25 Sports.
What's a Southern girl? It's waking up before the sun rises. It's loving the simple things in life like the dirt roads that lead you home. It's working hard to get what you want. It's hanging your own stands, breaking your own ground, and strategizing every little move for that one moment when everything you've worked for is standing right in front of you. Even if I fail a million times, I keep pushing myself till I'm exhausted, filthy, and about to give up. And that's when the adrenaline hits.
And welcome back to the Cardinals Nest here on HBC. We're highlighting softball this week. We just had on Jen Miller, the head coach for the softball team, and now Hallie Schmeling joins us. Hallie is the starting sophomore shortstop for the Cardinals. And I have a feeling her favorite number is number 3 because she's number 3 in basketball and she's number 3 in softball as well. So Hallie, thanks for joining us here on the Cardinals Nest. And you're from Alaska, so not too far to come here to St. Mary's. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you kind of became a dual sport athlete here at St. Mary's.
So basketball's kind of always been my main sport. And then I really took off with it kind of the last 2 years of high school, really developed a passion for it. And I knew I wanted to play basketball coming into college. They recruited me here, decided this was the right fit for me. I've really enjoyed it here. Close to home, I'm very close to my family, so that was a nice aspect. And then I just kind of decided I couldn't really imagine not playing softball anymore. So I decided to continue that, and it's actually kind of become the more dominant one in my life. So I'm glad I get the opportunity to play both here.
How much of a challenge is it to play both sports at the collegiate level? Most people that you talk to coming out of high school have done it in high school, but I got to imagine it's a completely different animal when you get to the college level playing two sports.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think I mean, you say it's only a winter sport for basketball. You say it's only a spring season for softball, but really they're both year-round. And just the time management aspect of college in general with your course load and homework load and being on your own for the first time, figuring all that out on top of 2 year-round sports, it is a challenge. But it's definitely worth it, and you get a lot out of it.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, did you talk to any of our other two-sport athletes before you kind of made that final decision? Because we do have a fair amount at St. Mary's and several on the basketball team along with you. So did you consult with them a little bit to get an idea for the workload and everything?
Yeah, I definitely talked to some other two-sport athletes, and I talked to both coaches, you know, just kind of seeing how it would play out with the overlap and everything. And they all say it is a challenge, but definitely doable. And if you have the passion for it, definitely go for it. And they all work really well with me and make it happen for anybody that wants to.
Before we talk softball, let's just kind of review the basketball season. Outstanding season for you guys, and under first-year head coach David Foley. Talk a little bit about the basketball season and what you took away from this year.
Yeah, it was a good basketball season. I think it was a very tight-knit team this year. So I think that helped us obviously off the court, but on the court as well. We had kind of a new system this year, and it took a little bit of adjusting, but I think it worked really well for us, and it was a good fit. Obviously some ups and downs this season, but that's what you do as a team. You face some adversity, and you get through it with each other, and it turned out to be a pretty good season.
I think it was amazing the fact that you didn't even know who your head coach was really when the school year started back in August. and then to see it all come together as well as it did, even you know, to the point of getting to the playoffs, I thought that was a fantastic testament not only to Coach Foley but also to the players as well for buying in and adjusting for what was a very last-minute sort of thing, right?
Yeah. For sure.
So now how about, now we're going to go to the softball season here, and you heard Coach Miller talk about the snow and the weather. How does that impact the players from a mindset standpoint?
Yeah, it's definitely a bummer being cooped up inside.
It's a good word, I guess.
Like she said, it is a very different game. Not only is it coming at you faster, but just the feel of it is different. You're not confined to the standard field that you see. You have this big open space, and it really does feel different. But like she said, it is what it is. You kind of got to deal with it and adjust to it. Does take a little bit of the fun out of it, being inside, but it makes it all that more great when we do get to be outside.
You know, and having done this last year, so you've experienced it, how do you mentally keep yourself at the top of your game, knowing that, okay, we come back from Florida, it was great there, now we've got at least 2 more weeks playing inside, back in the RAC, we're going to be to the Rochester Dome to play Luther. How do you make sure that everybody stays up, because it isn't softball the way it should be played?
I think we do a really good job as a team and coaches acknowledging that. So we know that we have to amp up our energy, come at it at a mindset of a positive, and just use the opportunity to the best that we can. It gives us a good chance to work on the little things, which really make a big difference, especially for our team. Those little things in the games are usually what either propel us forward or hold us back. So I think the RAC actually gives us a good opportunity to work on those things.
You know, we talked to Coach Miller about the trip and what she took away from it. As a player, coming back from 10 games in Florida, what do you and your teammates take away from that performance?
It was a really good experience. Again, some ups and downs, some games we probably should have won, some great comeback games that we had. It was really fun to get out and play with everybody. Again, I think we have a super tight-knit team. This is one of the best cultures and just tightly woven teams that I've been on. We all have super different personalities, but we just work really well together. And we feed off of each other, and we learn some things that we have to work on, but I think just getting out there and playing the game that we love, it was really fun, and we saw some really good things.
You did fall ball, and then you played basketball, and I think you were saying off camera you had 2 practices before you went on the spring trip, and you go and you hit .428. You lead the team in virtually every offensive category. Maybe you should never practice before a game.
Coach Miller doesn't want to hear that.
Talk a little bit about your performance from that aspect. Really, you didn't have a lot of preparation. In fact, you probably weren't even sure you were going to be able to go on the trip until you guys lost in the basketball playoffs. So talk about your mindset going into Florida and how you were able to do what you did.
Well, I guess first off, during basketball season, I do try to get some softball reps in, obviously, because I'm going to transition into it anyways. The team and the coaches do a really good job of helping me with that, helping me prepare, get in the gym just whenever I can. They're really good about that, and obviously just depends on how basketball goes, how far we get, and then I jump right in. And I mean, it is like a very quick transition, obviously, but I have so much passion for softball that I'm just ready for it and so excited to get there and get outside and play.
So you're hitting down there in Florida. Tell us your thoughts on that. Were you surprised that you hit that well, or were you expecting to put forth a great performance like that?
Honestly, I was a little surprised. Last year I got some at-bats, and it was a little bit of a struggle for me last year. I think just the confidence aspect of it and just your mindset stepping into the box, and I've kind of worked on that for this year, and knew that I was stepping into a bigger role this year, and I just had to, and I knew I could do it. People have been supporting me, encouraging me, knew that I could do it too. And so just kind of stepping into the box with that mentality that I'm going to get up there and hit the ball, and feeding off of my teammates, I think really helped.
So let's talk about that role. Trying to replace Britt, who all-conference player for a number of years here. You're not her. How do you approach it so that you make that statement? You know what? I have to play shortstop now, where Brittany was for 4 years, but I'm me, and I'm going to do it this way. How do you make that statement that I can handle this role as our starting shortstop and right now our offensive leader.
Well, I did learn a lot from Britt. I'm very thankful for getting to play with her, play under her. She did a great job, and I learned a lot from her. And I mean, as a sophomore stepping into that shortstop role, I mean, that's a position on the field where you have to be a leader. And just from my experience playing throughout my life, basketball and softball, I've developed quite a bit of leadership. And we have, as Miller said, we have a young team, so we have to have leaders that are young too. And I am different. I'm a different player than Britt, but just stepping in, being my authentic self, not trying to be somebody else, just do what I can do and be the leader that I can be and communicate to everybody.
You know, I was going to say, from a chemistry standpoint at shortstop, you have to have really good chemistry with all of the infielders and the outfielders, because you're kind of the quarterback of the team at shortstop. How do you try to develop that chemistry with both sets of players?
Well, obviously off the field we do a lot together. I said we're a very tight-knit team, so we do a lot. We have really good relationships and connections. And from the field standpoint, infielders and outfielders, obviously there's a little more communication with the infield. You know, we're all in that closer area. We meet together all the time. But just integrating the infield and the outfield, you know, turning to them, saying how many outs we have, what the situation is, saying, you know, I have confidence in you, like you could do this.
So the communication aspect.
Yeah. That's honestly, that is a differentiating factor for our team. Whenever we're communicating, we're at the top of our game usually, and when we're not, it's a little bit more of a struggle. As it is with any team, any sport. So we've done a good job of that so far.
It seems like you're in that role, both basketball and softball, that leader on the court. You're a guard for the basketball team. You kind of run the show there in terms of the offense. You go to softball as a shortstop, like you said, you're kind of running the show. Is it an easier transition because you do it in basketball? Boom, you step on the field in softball and say, hey, okay, it's basically the same role that I had in basketball.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. I have all the skills, and I was doing it in basketball, then turn around and do it with softball. Different people, different game, but essentially you're doing the same kind of things.
So, Hallie, just about a minute left here, and Donnie will get the last question. But before he gets to that, I want to talk about your academic aspirations. You're an education major with hopes of being a fourth grade teacher someday. Tell us about the reasons for that.
Well, just growing up, I've had a lot of adult influences in my life. I've had some really good teachers, some really good coaches, and I mean, teaching and coaching is essentially, you know, kind of the same thing. I've always worked like basketball camps, softball camps, I've done tutoring, so I've just always loved working with people, especially kids, just making an influence as much as I can. So that's kind of what drove me.
Good. Well, and you certainly have a good school to learn to be a teacher, right? Because St. Mary's and the education department is terrific. So.
All right, Coach Miller's not here, so you don't have to worry about that. But I'm curious to know your feelings about the Walk of Horror, because I hear horror stories from softball players about that.
Yeah.
Tell me a story that you have about your fundraiser, the Walk of Horror.
Well, this was every year it seems, but last year we had one night where it rained particularly quite a bit. It's a really good fundraiser for us, and it is a ton of work, and we know that going into it. Miller tells us that every time, but it pays off. You know, we have to get the money for our budget to get what we need to be able to do what we can do, and unfortunately it happens to be the Walk of Horror, but it's a fun experience. We get to do a little bit of scare each other, but yeah, when the rain comes into play, carrying all this equipment, heavy stuff up and down the hill in the rain, it's muddy, it's cold, it's quite interesting.
I think that's the piece of it most people don't realize is they set up and tear down every single day.
It's a lot of work, and you're right though, it is a great fundraiser. I know it started basically right about when I started here, which is before Hallie was born. So, but it's a great fundraiser, and they do a phenomenal job. But I do know how much work it is, and I think if they had the opportunity, they'd say, "No, we wouldn't do it."
All right, Hallie Schmeling, thanks for joining us on the program, letting us learn more about you, and good luck on the season here.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for the Cardinals Nest here on HBC. Thanks for watching.